very often when I change names, I default back to Chuck and Susan. So I have a lot of Chuck and Susan stories. For some reason, those are the two names that always pop into my head.
It's a real Chuck and Susan out there going, come on, Wes, again.
I just know a lot of Chuck and Susans, and they're in their mid-70s. And I think it's a story that we could all relate to because it's a very large percentage of parents that do financially help their kids. It's a 45% of America reports giving some financial support or pretty significant financial support to their adult children. And it is something that we would like to do if we have the propensity. I've also found research-wise that if you're doing too much of it, it actually tips, going back to happy retirement, tips the scales towards an unhappy retirement. And that there's a thread of that in this. I would call this is a real life story. And they have a son, let's call him Nick, and he has a wife, and together the two of them, they have good jobs and they're doing well, but they have a lot of student debt. They've got let's call it $100,000 they each have about $50,000 of student debt. And even though they're making a good living, they're kind of just right on the line and they're trying to make ends meet. And and Chuck and Susan are in a good spot. They're in retirement. They've been in retirement now for a while. And they've got a little vacation house, very modest, let's call it vacation. We'll call it a mountain house. And that's where they go and they unwind. And the question I got from Susan recently was that, hey, I'm feeling a little guilty. I'm feeling a little guilty because Nick and his wife seem like they are just on the line of making ends meet. And me and Chuck, we're kind of having a really good time in retirement. We're going to our mountain house. We're going to our second home. Again, this is not some ostentatious, this is not a Susie Orman retirement we're talking about here. These are, let's call it normal Americans.
Okay.
And so she found herself in this tug of war and said, he's got this debt. And of course the question is, should I pay it off? Should I pay my son's debt off? Should I help them out? And she said, because part of this is my fault. He could have gone to a state school and would have zero financial debt at this point, have no loans. But I said, look, this other school at the time is a better fit for you. And even though it's private, it's going to be more money, but you can still take out a loan. And she says that she encouraged him to do it. And so she also carries this guilt of him having some debt, and again, it's not her fault that he married someone also with student debt. Millions of Americans have student debt. But she called and essentially said, within our financial planning, can I pay this off for him? Well, the reality is that they're already kind of, I would say, maxing out their withdrawal rate to a level that I don't want to see them go beyond this. So I said, I'm going to have to run these numbers here, but right now you're already kind of at this 5.5% withdrawal rate. That's a little above where we'd like to be, but it's still very sustainable. If you pay off this $50,000 worth of debt, it's going to immediately it's going to reduce your assets, and now your withdrawal rate is going to be 6.5% or 7%. So that's a ding to you. That impacts you and Chuck. And there's a difference between having peace of mind, knowing that your plan is working, and there's not a lot of cushion in this plan. And then there's the worry of running out of money. Now, she said, well, one of the things that we could do, of course, is sell the mountain home. Get a couple $100,000 for the mountain home, pay this off, pay the small amount of mortgage off over here, and even add a little money to the overall. But I said, well, tell me about how often are you using this place? Like, how often do you go? Oh, we go for half of the year we're there.
Oh, wow.
We love it.
Yeah.
We loved it during COVID. It was outside. It was a place they were really able to escape the city. And they have a bunch of friends up there, and they're really active in this community. It's not just a isolated vacation home. It's a community that they're in. It's a big part of their retirement, and they love it. And I said, whoa. First of all, the answer is no. You can't just take money out right now to pay off their debt. And number two, I cannot in good conscience say, go ahead and sell the mountain house so that you can help your adult children at this point. You're in your mid-70s. You've got a lot of retirement left to enjoy. And she said, but I still do kind of feel guilty. And I said, this is one thing you're missing. is that you are giving them a gift by not being a financial burden to your kids. If you look up the statistics around this, about a third of adults are helping out their parents. So you always hear the statistic around parents helping kids, parents helping kids. A third of Americans reported recently, these are people 18 to 34, are helping out their parents. So he said, this is the inheritance that you are giving them. And at some point, they'll inherit your money and they'll inherit the house. And maybe way down the line, you want to sell this, but that you are giving them a gift by not being financially dependent on your kids at all. And that in itself is a gift. And that in itself hopefully helps you feel a little less guilty. And Susan said, you know what? I hadn't thought about it that way. I do feel a lot less guilty. So I think I at least bought her another year of using the vacation house.
Oh my gosh.
And just looking at it in a slightly different way. So the lesson I think for all retirees is plan for you first. You cannot, if you're going to hurt your own retirement, that is the last thing you need to be doing. You're the parent, but you also need to take care of your own plan first. And it's okay to say no, number two, to your adult kids. At least no right now. That's totally fine. And three, remember that financial independence is generational generosity.
That's great.
So you being in a good spot is a blessing, I think, to your children. And lastly, if your plan is tight, you've got to really stay focused on it and don't knock it off course just because you've got a little guilt.
So true. And Clark always talks about when parents are trying to decide between funding their retirement accounts and maybe saving money for college, there are no scholarships for retirement. There are no student loans for retirement. So you have to fund your retirement.
There may be NIL deals, though, for retirement. You never
maybe.
know. No scholarships.
Few.
Maybe NIL. Remember our story of the college football player.
Yes.
You get an NIL deal for some arthritis cream.